Good afternoon. My name is Luis Granados. I am the Executive Director of MEDA, the Mission Economic Development Agency. I am very pleased to be here with you today to share our work with the Mission Promise neighborhood. But first, let me share some information about MEDA. MEDA was founded 40 years ago with a focus on business creation and expansion, providing loan services to Mission District and Latino businesses. Then, in the 1990s, during the dot-com boom, low-income Latino and immigrant families in the Mission District were faced with the threat of displacement. So we decided that MEDA needed to expand its services to include homeownership counseling, foreclosure intervention, and in subsequent years, we have added free tax preparation, financial capability, and workforce development services. MEDA now provides services to over 7,000 families annually. On MEDA, we take a holistic, integrated approach to service delivery because we are dedicated to ensuring that Latino families get all the resources that they need to be successful. The Mission Promise neighborhood is based on this philosophy of integrated approach to community development. The promise of the Mission Promise neighborhood is that all students and all families in the Mission District will be successful, both academically and economically. In the Mission Promise neighborhood, we believe that economic success is fundamental to academic success. And in the Mission Promise neighborhood, we are working on both. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Mayor Lee. He and his office have been instrumental in the success of the Mission Promise neighborhood. They have done this not only by being supportive of our efforts, but more importantly, by jumping in and being a true thought partner in this work. Under his leadership, because of strategic investments in job creation and economic growth, San Francisco has been not only spared the deep budget deficits of years past, but has grown to invest in our city and protect social services where people need them the most. Also, Mayor Lee has supported some of the largest expansions of affordable housing in decades with new large-scale projects at the Hunters Point Shipyard, Treasure Island, and new supportive housing for seniors and veterans. 25% of all new homes under construction in the city of San Francisco, nearly 12,000, will be affordable. Mayor Lee, we really appreciate the partnership and your good work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Luis, thank you very much for that introduction. And we're here today, thanks in large part to MEDA. I enjoy working with you, Luis, and the whole agency because a great part of what you do is what I have been doing as mayor, is that creating jobs and making sure our communities, like the Mission District, gets enough resources to participate in a very growing economy. Well, today we're here to welcome Secretary of HUD, Shaun Donovan, somebody who I've had a chance of working with very closely and a lot these days, because we want to re-envision the way we've been doing public housing. And we have said no time and time again. We do not want isolated poverty housing in our city of San Francisco anymore. It created not only so many problems, but it sustained generations of poverty that I think people deserve to get out of and have a chance to get out of. So we took this opportunity to welcome our secretary and our regional office and others to tour Valencia Gardens as one of the great examples, and a thank you to Mission Housing Development Corporation for their leadership in helping to build, to design, to reestablish what used to be poverty housing with sawn fences, no lighting, and people who talked about this place were very isolated. And there was, of course, a lot of calls to the police department and service calls in so many different ways for help. well, they got the help that they deserved some years ago. And now you see here some 260 units that are integrated with public housing, with Section 8, with housing tax credit units, and people are waiting to get into this place for good reason, because it is no longer isolated housing. It is housing that is integrated with communities. You'll see right at the center a health center that refers people, will be part of our implementation of Obamacare. You'll see computers in community rooms that give people access to the internet, but also skill sets to become part of the 21st century job creation. You see a lot of things that are linked to what we're doing with the rest of the city. And this is why it was so important to provide this tour for the Secretary, to allow him to envision what we want to do with the rest of public housing. We've got 31,000 other units that I think we are desirous of part of envisioning. That's why I want to thank our city administrator. I want to thank Joaquin Torres, the president of the new enthralled, enthusiastic Housing Authority Commission, because they, along with working with Olson, working with our regional HUD office, working with the talent that Secretary Donovan has assigned to us after we asked for. We've got talent coming out of D.C., not only D.C., out of Chicago, out of Hawaii, out of our regional office here with Pascal and her staff to help us with utilizing the newest programs that HUD is creating in order to get our re-envisioning up and started and running. And ultimately, we want every site that we invest in to become investments for the private sector as well, and to become joining with our community-based organizations. Because we can only succeed if we make every site kind of like what Valencia Garden has meant to the mission, sites for people to want to invest in, put private monies in, put their children in. The biggest investment that I always will say as the mayor of the city is when people want their families to come to San Francisco. That's the biggest investment. In order to do that, you've got to have schools, you've got to have small businesses, you've got to have community partnerships, you got to have the rest of city government engaged. And that's why we have over 100 people engaged in this re-envisioning process for our public housing. 70 different community organizations joined with 20 different departments in our city, re-envisioning how our public housing can be more integrated, more welcoming, to be part of the rest of the city. So I want to take this opportunity again to thank the Secretary, thank President Obama for giving us this opportunity, for reinforcing the President's view that we are about creating ladders of opportunity for all of our distressed communities. I can't stress how important that is. And to link that up with what we're doing every place else. You know, I've been very proud to create 6,000 summer jobs for kids, give them the same hope that we're trying to give the rest of the community. And when they talk to their parents and they're excited about getting the summer jobs, and that's again a part of what President Obama has given us the challenge for when we started this jobs program, Summer Jobs Plus, 2 years ago. Now we got 6,000 of these jobs this summer. I'm very proud of that. We'll continue to be working with Secretary Donovan. This is going to be part and parcel of many visits to come. I want to unveil time and time again examples of how we're utilizing and leveraging the federal programs. And I know that he's excited that when he looks to San Francisco, signature programs such as the rental assistance demonstration programs, we will be modeling that with him and how it works in such a dense city as San Francisco, and we'll continue to protect our communities, invite them to be both safe, but also for generations to come. They're going to get out of poverty cycles by working with our city and all the different agencies that we want. So with that, I want to welcome Secretary Shaun Donovan. He's got tremendous expertise. He's sharing that with us, and I'm grateful for the talent that he's given us to expose the programs that they want. And I know he joins me with saying an end to poverty housing and new beginnings and new re-envisioning for our public housing. I introduce to you, and again, welcome Secretary Shaun Donovan, Secretary of HUD.
Good morning. Good afternoon. What a beautiful, beautiful day. And I am so happy to be back in San Francisco. I'm reminded as I've traveled around the neighborhood this morning of something one of my former colleagues in the cabinet used to say. Hillary Clinton wrote a book called It Takes a Village to Raise a Child. And what I've seen this morning is that it takes a village to revitalize a village. And that's really what's happened. Starting with the leadership of a fantastic city government here with just a wonderful, wonderful leader. Mayor Lee, you've been an inspiration to me. My team has just absolutely loved digging in and working with yours in trying to make all of your visions for the city come true. And I continue to have absolute commitment to what you want to see happen here in San Francisco, which is couldn't be more beautifully shown to us today by just look around us. This is a remarkable neighborhood. And but it also takes, as I said, a village. And Luis Granados from Meta, enormously inspired by the work that Luis, you and your team have done. To everyone here at Mission Housing, the work that's been done at Valencia Gardens is absolutely beautiful and inspiring. I've just come from Everett Middle School, where I saw what made it possible to take one of the lowest performing schools in the city and have the single most impressive, dramatic leap in a single year that the city of San Francisco has ever had. And there is no single silver bullet to solve all those problems, but it is about bringing together the incredible web of partnerships that I've seen today. But everybody who has worked to help revitalize this neighborhood has a single goal in mind that they share with President Obama. As the mayor said, the president's been traveling around the country talking about the most important challenge facing our country. How are we going to continue to be a place where people, no matter where they come from, what they look like, if they work hard, play by the rules, that they can get access into a growing middle class in this country, that we can create ladders of opportunity into the middle class. But if you came to this neighborhood a decade or more ago, what you would have seen at Everett Middle School, at the public housing project that was here before Valencia Gardens, is a child who, no matter how hard they worked in school, no matter what his or her parents did to get ahead, you would have seen a child whose life chances and maybe even their lifespan was determined by the zip code they were growing up in. And that's just wrong in the United States of America. We can't allow children's futures to be destroyed because we've failed to create a neighborhood that nurtures them and helps them grow. Well, I've come here today not just to celebrate this success, but also to look at what I think is a model for the rest of the country. We need to take the example that we're seeing here in the Mission District to places all around this country and really looking at and understanding how it happened. And what I've seen, starting right here at Valencia Gardens, is a community that came together with over $25 million from HUD to start a Hope 6 redevelopment. And the result of that is the absolutely beautiful development that you see around you. I wish you could see the pictures I was looking at this morning of what this development looked like before. It was no place to raise a child. This is as beautiful a place as I could imagine. With an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old myself, any parent would feel lucky to raise their children here. But that was only the first step. The next step was when President Obama came in, he built the Race to the Top, helped get funds to schools that were struggling the most, and then, based on a model that I knew well from my work as housing commissioner in New York City, the Harlem Children's Zone was a model we wanted to spread to communities around the country. And so Arnie Duncan and I worked together. We created an effort we called Promise Neighborhoods and one we called Choice Neighborhoods that wanted to take this Hope 6 example you see around us and take it to the next level. And those two efforts, Promise Neighborhoods and Choice Neighborhoods, are benefiting this community in dramatic ways. Promise Neighborhoods brought $30 million of investment over 5 years to the Everett Middle School, but to 3 other schools in this neighborhood as well. And the results have been dramatic. I talked to kids this morning, the mayor and I did, and what we heard is they love their teachers. They love to learn. They love to be in school. But what we also heard is that when their parents can't get them for a couple hours after school, there are very, very rich, comprehensive after-school programs that allow them to continue their learning after the school day ends. We heard that when they're struggling with challenges of violent crime at home or other things, that they have counseling that they can get right there in school that was never available to them before. All of the pieces have come together through Promise Neighborhoods to be able to make sure that no child's future is determined just by their zip code. And finally, the last piece to this is that we at HUD awarded $30 million to help create the next generation of what housing should look like in the city. As the mayor said, we can't build poverty housing anymore. We can't build housing that concentrates the lowest income in neighborhoods without grocery stores, without opportunity, without hope. And instead, what we need to do is take this Hope 6 model you see around us and take it to the next level. And that's exactly what we have done with Choice Neighborhoods. At Alice Griffith, we will see over the next few years an equally remarkable vision that you see here growing out of the ground. And there, what you'll see is exactly what we've seen here and in Hope 6 around the country. That this is not just something we should do. There are some who say, we can't afford, this may be beautiful, but we can't afford to do this. I say, we can't afford not to do this. Every time we redevelop public housing in the right way, the Urban Institute has studied this and shown that $22 million is returned to taxpayers. Why? Because kids grow up and they can contribute to society in different and new ways. Crime goes down, incomes go up, school performance gets better. All of those things not just contribute to those kids' lives, but they actually save money in the long run for taxpayers. And so Alice Griffith will be the next step with a $30 million Choice Neighborhoods investment. But here's what the future looks like. We've been so inspired, and Arnie Duncan, my colleague in the cabinet, the education secretary, was here just a few months ago. We've all been so inspired by examples like we've seen here. The president in his State of the Union address this year announced that we would be taking all of this work, Promise Neighborhoods, Choice Neighborhoods, the work that we've seen here in San Francisco, to the next level through our Promise Zones effort. And what does that mean? That means not only are we going to bring the housing and the education pieces, we're going to bring the Department of Justice and criminal justice efforts. We're going to bring Health and Human Services with clinics like we see here. We're going to bring all of the pieces together. Transportation, Mayor, we heard about this at school today. How do we connect kids to their schools, parents to jobs? All of those pieces are going to come together when this fall we start announcing the first of 20 neighborhoods around the country that will be designated as Promise Zones. That will be the culmination of our effort to build on this incredible model that we are seeing happen before our very eyes in the Mission neighborhood. The Mission District is an inspiration to all of us. And I can't thank you enough, Mr. Mayor, but all of you, Luis, the entire village that it has taken to create what I see in front of me today. You are an inspiration, and I will go back to Washington, talk to the president about this, and we will make sure that our Promise Zones effort lives up to the example that I've seen today, because we can all agree that no child should grow up in this country without hope, without possibility, without promise, simply because of the zip code that they were born in. Thank you for hosting me here today. Let's take some questions. Questions?
Mr. Secretary, so as you know, as you may know, we're not at a housing authority site, and as you probably know, the San Francisco Housing Authority is one of 2 in California to be ranked troubled. Are we saying that we should get away from the housing authority model as well and go with this sort of, it's not truly, a public-private partnership, but a sort of, public nonprofit partnership. So are we saying that the housing authority model, as we've known it for a long time, is not the way to go?
So, first of all, this is a housing authority site, right? This is what public housing used to be, still owned by the housing authority, and it's a partnership, but with a strong partner that guarantees it remains affordable housing. It was inspiring. We had a young girl this morning say, what are the challenges you see in her neighborhood? Say, well, housing's getting more expensive, and some families are getting pushed out. This is the kind of development that will make sure that we keep that. But look, my job is not to come into cities and say, this is the only model that can work. In some cities around the country, preserving public housing in its traditional funding form has worked well. But in lots of places, examples like this, but also what the mayor's started to do with his reimagining of public housing here, is to bring in other partners. We want to support whatever the local vision is, and we will provide the tools to do that. Choice Neighborhoods is obviously one of those tools, particularly for severely distressed public housing. Our rental assistance demonstration has already helped about 40,000 units around the country bring in almost $1 billion of private capital with no added cost to the taxpayer in a way that's renovating and rebuilding that housing. So that's another partnership effort. But it really does depend on whatever the mayor says they need as tools to revitalize public housing. I've been impressed with the plan that they've put into place this year, and we're going to be doing everything we can to support that.
And part of that is we have looked very detailed at the best talent in the city. And I must tell you that our nonprofit housing developers and managers are some of the best talent in the whole country. If you mention Bridge Housing, Mercy Housing, Chinese Development Corporation, Mission Housing Development, all of these very strong community-based nonprofits have star developments that they're managing for all different incomes. And we're going to use that talent to re-envision public housing. That's our local choice. That's certainly the direction I'm heading towards, because I do think that the way we've run the kind of poverty housing we had in the past didn't work. It got too bureaucratized. People lost a vision of what they're doing, and they didn't integrate the needs of the residents to the rest of the community. That's where I think we lost it. We stopped investing in the very people that we were housing. And to me, if you keep that in mind, I think we find new solutions. And that's why Promise and Choice are so invaluable to us, because they're always talking about how do you invest in the people and then create all the connections for them to succeed.
Yeah, so I have another one. So the housing authority's capital budget's been cut pretty steadily for the last 20 years, and it's been cut again with the first sequestration, and it might happen again on October 1st. So are we saying that HUD can't provide the money that public housing needs, and it has to come from private capital?
What I believe and what this president believes is that sequestration is absolutely the wrong thing to be doing for public housing, but also for the rest of the country. Not only are we dramatically underfunding public housing, we've got 60,000 homeless folks that are likely to be back out on our streets around the country because of sequestration. We have, if sequestration goes into effect this year, we have homeless veterans that will be going back on our streets around the country. So public housing is only one example of the devastating effects of sequestration. And look, it doesn't have to be this way. If we as a country can get our priorities right on our budget, if we ask everyone, those who have done very well over the last few decades, to contribute their fair share, we don't have to balance our budget on the backs of the most vulnerable in our country. And unfortunately, that's what sequestration has been doing. So have we been trying to find creative ways to ensure that public housing doesn't suffer given the bad choices that have been made by some in Congress? Absolutely, and we're going to continue to do that. And by the way, it's not just about bringing in private capital. It's about whether public housing can have a grocery store in it. It's about whether there's community space for the kinds of magnificent programs that I saw today. It's about creating a partnership that opens up public housing to being part of a community, as the mayor said. And so, yes, part of it is getting new and creative sources of capital, but ultimately, this is not an either or. The federal government should be doing its fair share to invest in public housing. And with the cuts we've seen in our budget, we need to do more. There's no question in my mind. And the president has a budget that he proposed this year that would significantly increase funding for public housing from where it was. I hope Congress funds that budget. But in the meantime, we're not going to wait on Congress. We're going to continue to find creative things like RAD, like Choice Neighborhoods, that we're going to do with the mayor and other great leaders around the country to save public housing.
Last question.
Mr. Secretary, can you tell us what message the president sent you out to give to San Franciscans?
Well, the first thing the president told me to do, and you remember, the president said his greatest education that he got wasn't at Harvard Law School. It was on the south side of Chicago as an organizer in public housing. And he learned a lot of lessons from his experience. What he has asked, not just me, but the entire cabinet to do, is to travel around the country and learn the best lessons from communities that have been able to not just envision, but actually create revitalization like we've seen here in the Mission District. So he told us to learn. But the other message that he wanted me to make sure I got out was what I said earlier, that if we are going to continue to live up to the ideals of our founders in America, that this is a country where no matter where you come from, what you look like, what's your background, that if you work hard and play by the rules, you can get ahead, that we need to live up to those ideals as a country. And that means in neighborhoods where traditionally kids have had a tough time getting ahead, where too often their life chances and even their lifespan was determined by their zip code, we can't stand for that. And we need to make sure that we're dramatically increasing our investment in those communities. And just let's be clear, for Promise Zones, his proposal this year is to quadruple our investment in Choice Neighborhoods, quadruple our investment in Promise Neighborhoods, quadruple our investment in the Burn Criminal Justice effort. All of those substantial increases in investments would help more communities become what the Mission District has become. Anybody else? Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.